right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome into Fox 5 Live. My hair's still messed up. Wednesday edition, Hump Day edition, I guess you could say. We're halfway through the work week. Hope everybody's made it back okay, or made it through okay the first half of the week, and hopefully we keep rocking and rolling through the second half of this week. Weather's really quiet. I mean, that's the, you know, we're struggling to kind of hang in there in the weather department this week because sometimes we get locked into these quiet patterns, and then all we can do is look ahead and say what's coming next, and that's sort of what we're dealing with this week. Let me take you back outside live, look at that Capitol again, because you can see the flag blowing around. That's kind of the big story for today is cool air. Today's your transition day, so to speak, in these weather patterns where we were nice and warm yesterday, 68 degrees. Cold started coming in last night, and cold's going to kind of continue to come in as we head through the course of the day today. And then tonight's going to be the first night where, you know, you'll wake up tomorrow morning and say, hey, winter's back, because temperatures by tomorrow morning locally in the 20s and the 30s by the time most people are waking up. All right, let's talk about what's going on, just like we always do. Here's the deal. Yesterday's storm is way up here now. There's your cold front from yesterday, right off the coast, so extreme kind of right-hand side of your screen. There it is. What's left over is this guy, which is this little piece of upper-level energy that's bringing a little bit of snow across the mountains. It's coming through upper-level low with enough energy to kick things up over the mountaintops. We're not going to see anything here in D.C., but what we are seeing is a little bit of lift up here, so it's creating a cloud deck. And some of those clouds are crossing the mountains here so far this afternoon and clouding us up. All this yellow you see, that's drier air. That's a lack of water vapor. So eventually I think dry air is going to win out, and we're going to end up with a halfway decently sunny afternoon here. Here's the satellite. You can see it. Notice where the features are. There was where your upper level low is out there. You see all the clouds coming with it. And the clouds are filtering their way across the mountain. See all those lines? In fact, I can go in closer. Here's a closer view with our satellite going up. See all those, not those ones, all these lines out here, how the clouds kind of develop into kind of like the wavy lines like that coming across. It's what we call gravity waves, where the air hits the mountains, it goes up and over the mountains, and then it does this in the atmosphere just because of how temperatures are throughout the atmosphere. It bounces up and down and up and down. That creates these pockets of sunshine and these pockets of cloud cover. And right now here in D.C., we're sitting in a pocket of cloud cover, but it looks like we got a pocket of sun not too far to the west here. In fact, if I go back to the Capitol right now, you can see that we got the sunshine starting. See, now the sun's shining. So there's one of those roll clouds coming through. Sun's now shining on the Capitol, but you give it like 20 more minutes, and we'll be back into one of these roll cloud things where the sun is suddenly no longer shining. Speaking of the sun, let me show you this, because if you're curious, again, when it gets quiet in the weather department, we have to do these kind of things. Days are finally getting longer, so as of tomorrow, I kind of planned this map for tomorrow. Today's sun sets at 5:20, I believe. Tomorrow, sun will rise at 7:19. It will set at 5:21. 10 hours, first day of 2018 with over 10 hours of sunlight. So we're making progress there all the way up until I believe either June 20th or 21st, whenever the summer solstice is. We will continue to gather daylight here. So after dealing with a month of less than 10 hours of daylight, or I believe 2 months of less than 10 hours of daylight, we're finally getting back up to it. 10 hours and 2 minutes of glorious sunshine to look forward to tomorrow. And yes, it will be sunshine. I am expecting tomorrow to be a pretty sunny day here in the D.C. region. We just got to get this this upper level low that's hanging out. We just got to get it out, and then all this drier stuff will move in, and we'll be fine for tomorrow. Same thing as before. Kind of cool to see there's your moisture feed for the front. Still coming from way down south here, so still a lot of moisture along the front. But again, we're behind it, so no concerns here. All right, let's see. Moving on. The only story here locally is temperatures. What will it be later on this afternoon? Probably mid to upper 40s here in D.C. This particular model has us hanging out at 42, which I believe, if I check, I think we're warmer than that right now. But, you know, why not? We have the time. Why don't we check it out and see exactly what we're sitting at down at the airport. So it has us at 42 degrees. We're at 45. So we're sitting a little warmer than the model says we're going to sit at. And if I pull up the media, I'm doing this live because some things I get the idea for after I pull up the facts. So if I pull up what's called the mediograms to see what the models are going compared to where we've been, Let's see, there's your hourly temperature forecast. So right now, some models are doing all right. We're sitting right about, let's see, that's the latest black dot right there. So we're sitting right at 45. Models have us getting to 46, 47, 48 degrees later on this afternoon before the fall comes tonight. And I got us going down to about 30 degrees. I got a couple models. You see the high resolution models right there in the 20s tomorrow morning. Will all depend on how clear we get. If we're able to clear out and go clear skies overnight, then we won't have a problem getting into the 20s tonight. I think there'll be a few clouds left around enough and enough wind to keep temperatures up a little bit during the overnight hours. So I've got us going to 30 tonight. This particular model says 28 here in DC, but the point being, tomorrow morning's a heavier coat morning because you see the 20s, those are teens out there in the mountains, but 20s kind of settling in around the immediate DC metro region as we head into tomorrow. And then tomorrow afternoon's our coldest afternoon of the week this week, with temperatures struggling to get out of the 30s in a few spots here in DC. If we get enough sun, we may make 40s for a period of time, but I think 30s is more the story than anything tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow is a good indoor day, but it's sunny and bright. It draws sunshine. That's as good a sun as I learned to draw in those 8th grade. Smiling sunshine across the view. There we go. Can you tell the weather's quiet? Because we do stuff like that when the weather's quiet. All right. Here's the general feature for temperatures over the next few days. So let's get back out to right here and now. There's the warmth from yesterday that is leaving. We're having a little cool shot here over the next 24 to 48 hours. That cold will fade away into the weekend. By Saturday, you get your warmth back. There's your warmth coming, sneaking in from the south and west. I mentioned the dry air coming up. We're going to get ourselves back into the 50s to near 60 by the time we get to Saturday afternoon. We'll keep it around on Sunday, but Sunday you start to see, Sunday and the Monday, you start to see cold coming back here. In between, almost always, in between cold and warmth, you're going to get a storm somewhere. You're going to have a storm ride the Great Lakes again on Sunday. That's going to bring a chance of rain showers here. So if there's any day that you need to be concerned with any outdoor plans or outdoor activities, your day to watch out for that is going to be Sunday. And I'll show you that in just a sec, because Sunday has the best chance of rain here in DC. Continuing with the pattern into next week, early next week gets chilly. Nothing too extreme, because you notice there's your extreme Arctic air. We don't really have a connection to it. There's a disconnect between the big Arctic air and what's coming our way next week. So a more moderate, kind of like what we're going through right now into tomorrow, coming our way early next week. Behind that, late next week, we'll warm up yet again. And then all of a sudden, this connection wants to try and fix itself. And watch, this next cold air is going to have a decent connection to this cold air up in northwest Canada. You're going to push a ridge up into Alaska. That's going to move the cold air eastward. And this cold air outbreak could have a little bit more of a punch to it as we head into the Super Bowl weekend time frame. So that's kind of the idea we're watching. If you've been watching the past couple of days, we've kind of been honing in on that Super Bowl weekend for the next time that the pattern really shifts around. And we'll go through that again in just a minute here. Here's the latest data. Again, mid-40s today, lower 40s tomorrow here in DC. Temperatures overnight, 30s here in town to 20s. Outside of town, most certainly 20s the next 2 nights, both Thursday and Friday morning as you're getting up to work. That's what temperatures should feel like. For your day on Saturday, starting off not too bad, upper 30s to near 40, and then look at the afternoon hours, upper 50s to near 60. Same deal on Sunday, but the reason we're starting so warm, so see where it says min, those are your morning lows, min, and then your afternoon highs are max. So your min comes first. Upper 40s to near 50. The reason why, lots of clouds. Clouds aren't good for allowing temperatures to drop. We're always told never to say this as meteorologists, because clouds don't act like a blanket, because the clouds themselves actually generate their own infrared radiation and help warm things themselves. It's not awful. Just think of it as clouds acting like a blanket in terms of it doesn't allow the warmth to escape a little bit. But know this, as a meteorologist, that saying the term clouds act like a blanket is completely incorrect, and we shouldn't use it, but it is a fun little analogy to be able to explain that clouds, generally speaking, help keep temperatures up at night. So that's why we're going to be warm on Sunday morning, but it's a rainy day Sunday afternoon, so temperatures won't go so far. We may do 10 degrees and get up to near 60 again, but it won't be the type of day you want to run around outside in because, again, it looks a little messy at this point. Monday's your day of transition. Tuesday, Wednesday next week is cold. We could have a couple snow flurries on Tuesday. I'll show you that in a minute. But then the warmth comes back late next week. And then into next weekend. Again, this is where I'm watching for a pattern change. You see it gets us cold next Saturday, Sunday, and then warms us back up into the next week. I'm a little suspicious of this. This may be harder to, I think this could end up being a colder period. We'll watch for it, and I'll show you why here in just a sec. Let's go through weather threats real quick. Here we are today. There goes our storm from yesterday. Again, we're quiet today. Tonight into tomorrow, watch the mountains, couple of upslope snow showers. And what I mean by upslope is your air comes down, it hits the eastern side or western flanks of those mountains. It's forced to rise as it hits the mountains, and that rising air with just a little bit of moisture forces snow down. So you get those mountain snow showers. Not expected to cross. Because guess what happens on the other side of the mountains? Air goes up, it rides the mountain down. Air going down is a drying mechanism, and the drying mechanism dries it out. So not expecting any snow here in D.C. as we head into the overnight hours tonight. Just be aware of that if you're doing any traveling out west across the mountains. Don't be shocked if you hit a snow shower. Nothing major expected out there, though. Heading into tomorrow, should be a sunny day. High pressure's closer, which means we shouldn't have the cloud issues like we have today. Same deal on Friday, and then by Friday into Saturday, this circle you see here, this black line circle, that's your area of high pressure getting off the coast. You're going to wrap up some southern warmth behind it. Saturday does look dry, but it does look like we're going to start to increase the clouds throughout the day on Saturday. So don't expect it to be sunny and bright. Maybe a little bit in the morning, but we should cloud up by Saturday afternoon. Here we go into Sunday, and you see the next front coming down from the north and west. Area low pressure is going to try and develop along it and bring up a lot of moisture, and that gives us the best chance for rain. There we are Sunday afternoon into Monday, getting into the rainfall activity. Going beyond, I got to switch models here. Going beyond, let's go back to the European model. Wait for it to load. There we go. All right, so let me get us back out to where we were. There's your day Sunday and the Monday. Going beyond, maybe there's a weak little clipper system. I'm suspicious of it because it's not the coldest air mass in the world. But right now the Europeans saying, hey, there could be a little bit of leftover moisture. That see right there that hangs up behind the front and gets in here as some light snow showers, the flurry activity. Is it the type that's going to get you out of school? No, because it's real light and it's not organized. Whereas before you can see these clippers coming across, this looks like more snow shower activity than clipper activity to me. I think it's light, I think it's flurries, and I think it's very scattered. If it happens at all, we'll see. This could end up being a much drier period. You got a high pressure right here forcing dry air down from the north, so that might not happen at all next Tuesday, and we may end up taking snow showers out of the forecast. Into next Wednesday, we're cold, but then the next storm system starts to develop at the end of next week. Out ahead of it, see where this area high pressure is right here, that closed circle. Guess what that's doing? Forcing up cold, warmer air from the south, which is why I think some of these models are getting awfully close with this storm system to making it a snow event here in D.C. I don't think so. Not with that high right there. That's not going to allow this storm to get off the coastline where it needs to be. I think this high being where it is going to force this storm track up into the Great Lakes. We mentioned this yesterday. That was a terrible L right there. I think that storm's going to end up being forced up that way because high pressure's right here. It's not going to allow it to budge. Low pressure does not like to push into high pressure. And what's going to happen is we'll be on the warm side of the low. We'll warm it up, but we'll have some rain around here. See, watch as we don't get to the end of it. And I'll show you why there are good things and bad things with that system. But right now, the worst thing with that system is you got a big old high parked here. And when high pressure is parked right there, it's pushing in a lot of warmth from the south up into our area. And if it comes in stronger, then yes, it's going to push that storm track instead of being here up into here. And then you just have too much warm air problems to be any sort of snow threat here. Another way to look at that system, remember this? I showed it yesterday. This was the afternoon, evening run on Monday, showing that snow event. Notice the date, February 3rd. So that's kind of that time frame we were just looking at. Showed the blizzard before the Super Bowl. Here's today's models with it. So that was the old run. Here's the new run with it. See the difference? See how the low, remember how yesterday I said I thought the low would end up going north and west because there's no block, there's no upper level block up here. The American model took that turn today. So it brought the low from here all the way back up into here, and you can't see it. It's not as far west with the high as in the European model, but there is an area high pressure way off here in the coastline that's pulling in the southern moisture. And again, I think this guy's going to keep coming west, and that's going to take this low and keep pushing it north and west. And you know, your cities like Chicago and maybe Detroit will end up getting a snow event. But here in DC, I think we're on the warm side of the low that rides the Great Lakes up like that. And we're dealing with a rain event here next weekend that transitions in our next cold period. That's a big high out there. There's a bigger high up here. Those are both very cold, and those areas of high pressure are going to dive the cold air down. Decent connection to northwest Canada, so stronger cold coming our way, I believe, after Super Bowl, either during or after Super Bowl weekend. I just don't think it gets here in time to make this thing a halfway decent storm. Here's the energy with it. First of all, early next week, the first push of cold air comes down with this weak little trough. Not enough to give us any snow, in my opinion. It's a little too late. Energy's not in the worst spot, but what you do have is what we call a positive tilted trough. Any storm that forms will get pushed, and no concern here. The week starting January 29th. It's the next one that's the one that would be of any interest to us. You got a northern branch, and you have a nice deep diving southern branch here. We spin it out a little farther forward as far as the model will let me. That's not the worst looking setup at day 10. You'd want to see this guy getting a little bit more out in front. You'd want to see this guy getting over here, and you'd want to see this energy a little stronger and more dug in, and you want to see that trough starting to get a little more negative. Again, I'm not holding out a lot of hope because this is out what we call hour 240, aka this is 10 days away. So I don't think that the model is going to look anything like that by the time we get in a little closer. So I wouldn't trust anything you see like this that's spitting out a blizzard that weekend. Wouldn't trust it yet. Upper levels aren't set, and given what the blocking patterns look like during that time period, which I'll show you right now, there's ridge, there's that storm that I think is going to be a rainstorm coming our way early after, let's see, this is 1:35, so this would be this coming Monday, Tuesday. That's our cold air outbreak behind the next storm. And as we get into next weekend, Super Bowl weekend, we warm it up out ahead of it, which is never good because I don't think we do very well with any snow event here after a warm pattern, a breaking warm pattern, as I like to call it. But you're lacking a strong block up in this region to get the storm track the way we need to go. So I think either one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get that storm going up the Great Lakes, which is what I prefer at this time, and we'll do one more rain event that may change to a period of snow, especially west of town, and then the cold air spills in, or those pieces, the northern branch and southern branch, never connect, and the storm gets thrown out the bottom of it, and we just have some showers along a cold front that may transition to snow, and then it gets on out of here, and we just start turning cold. So two options that I see happening that weekend. Neither one of them at this point strikes me as, hey, get ready, I think we could have a blizzard that weekend. Nope, not seeing it just yet. What I do see is the cold coming back in a pretty good way. Nice ridge building up into Alaska. Not built as well today as it was yesterday on the models in this region, which is a little not really concerning. But if you want stronger cold, you got to build the ridge up into here. You'll see what the result is of a lack of a ridge here in just a minute. But cold certainly comes back beyond Super Bowl weekend. The question is, how long does it hold? Because there's a lack of ridge built in where that X is in northwest Canada, and I see I'm blocking it, so let me take myself off. Because there's a lack of a ridge here in northwest Canada, what you're doing is allowing this trough to build in a little bit too far to the west. So the cold more dives into the west and the Midwest as opposed to the east. That allows this big ridge out here to back build into the southeastern U.S. If that happens, we'll stay on the milder side of things because the storm track will be driven up into the Great Lakes. So we'll have these periods of cold that are subsequented by periods of warmth when the rain comes up, and then we get cold again behind the storms. We don't want that here. We want snow. So we want to see this ridge up here build a little bit farther off to the east. That'll take all this blue, and that'll push it off to the east, and then we're cold. And then what we have to do is, and it kind of what I kind of think is we need it to look like that. That's not a bad pattern here for storms, because you'll pull anything off the Pacific coast there, you'll wrap it around, and then you'll try and wrap it up and around that ridge up there. So that's kind of what you want to see as we go forward, is that pattern setting up more and more. I think it's going to happen that way as opposed to this way. It might take a little longer to get the cold in here in February, but I think eventually all that blue is going to come eastward, just because a lot of the models are very aggressive with building the ridge in here long term as we head towards the middle of February. All right, guys, that's kind of what I have for the daytime or the day here today. Again, nothing extreme heading our way. Really, we're in a quiet kind of pattern here. We're in a little bit of a struggle kind of pattern here to get the to talk about weather, just because it's been a very quiet week. Just highlights: cold tomorrow morning, chilly-ish tomorrow afternoon, cold again Friday morning. Pattern shift day is Friday. We'll start cold. We'll head a little better in the afternoon, up near 50 by Friday afternoon. Saturday's the best day of the week, and in terms of warmth, though we will build clouds throughout the day, but we should keep it dry. It's Sunday. That's your warm day, but your soggy day with showers and maybe even a rumble of thunder expected. And then as we head into next week, early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time period, we get chilly again, kind of like we're doing right now. Maybe if we're lucky, maybe a couple snow flurries on Tuesday, but that doesn't look like any big deal. And in fact, we might have to take them out of the forecast at some point because there's not a lot of strong forcing there for it. We'll warm up again late next week, and then beyond late next week into next weekend is the time period to watch for maybe a more significant change back over to a more long-term cold pattern here. All right, that's all I have, guys. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Stay warm out there. We'll be in and out of the sun here for a few hours, but I think sun wins out late day. I'm going to leave you with a live look at the Capitol as I start to send it back to Molly. She's going to be coming in here in just a few minutes. Then live look at outside. We're in and out of the clouds for now. But again, sunshine should win out a little later on this afternoon. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll check on the weather, see if anything's shifted overnight. Take care, guys. Molly's back in just a sec if you need.
All right, guys, welcome to the news portion of the show here at Fox 5 Live in the DC newsroom. You just heard from Mike and got the weather update for the day. We're going to jump right into news and go right to the Nassar trial. We've been tracking this for the last week and a half. I am told, and I was reading some sources here, that the sentencing is to complete today. So we will likely hear what Dr. Larry Nassar will be facing today. If that's 25 years plus, we don't know, up to 40 years. Remember, if you haven't already seen this out there, he's already facing 60 plus years or so in charges from a previous child pornography charge. So without any further ado, let's go over to that trial, guys, in Lansing, Michigan. If they do take some time out of this and they sort of mute the mics, some of the sources do want to remain anonymous in this. If they do, we'll pull away from that video and we'll go somewhere else. But for now, let's see, because this is all to come to a conclusion today. But just to tease out sort of what we're going to be covering today, first of all, welcome and thanks for joining me here on the stream. We're going to be jumping around to whatever news sources we have. We'll talk a little bit about what's trending in social topics, entertainment videos, and the like, and then we'll see whatever props up for breaking news coming out of our stations across the country, some other little tidbits of news that are coming out too. We'll see if we can get a little recap on the Oscar nominations from Kevin and all that and much more. So let's go over to this trial, guys, which is slated to conclude today. Not quite sure if it is earlier this morning or if it'll be later in the afternoon, but let's check it out.
Limited to the hours and hours and hours of sexual penetration. The defendant is a twisted, beloved, renowned doctor who used his prestige to gain trust of these girls, to exploit them, leaving many of them emotionally shattered, used by a man that they not only trusted but also loved. He supposedly practiced osteopathic manipulative medicine, but in truth, he was simply a master manipulator. He manipulated victims and parents. He manipulated his community through the press and social media early in this case. He tried to manipulate the police department in his interviews. He tried to manipulate prior investigators. He even tried to manipulate Your Honor and this court through his pathetic letter, all while knowing the truth, that he did the things he was accused of doing. And in competitive gymnastics, he found the perfect place for this master manipulation. In gymnastics, young girls do what they're told. They hide their pain, they hide their injuries. These young girls bared all of it. Their bodies were constantly on display and under scrutiny. It takes some kind of sick perversion to not only assault a child, but to do so with her parent in the room. To do so while a lineup of eager young gymnasts waited at Twist Stars to see the gymnastics god, Larry Nassar. It's a sick perversion when a defendant's close family friends were upstairs in his own home while he abused young Kyle Stevens, just 6 years old when it began. His own wife and children sat upstairs for years while he gave his basement treatments. To unnecessarily and without warning penetrate an unsuspecting minor for your own selfish sexual gains while her parent sat just feet away, unknowing, had to be part of the rush or the thrill for this defendant. The thrill that he might just get caught. But he was a master. He had developed a built-in defense. No coach should be in a shower with a boy. No priest has an excuse for any type of sexual touching. But Nassar perfected a built-in excuse in defense. He was a doctor, and a good one, so the world thought. And this makes up the other half of his scheme. The trust he could garner from being not only a doctor, a respected professional, but an Olympic doctor, one who treated these young girls, these young victims, heroes. He adorned his office with pictures of Olympians he treated, with the far-off places his supposed expertise took him. He brought back tokens for his precious victims, regalia from competitions around the world. And in doing so, he made each of his victims feel special. As Cassie Powell said, the defendant hid behind Olympic rings in Spartan green and white. For many of these girls, Nassar was not just a doctor, but a confidant, a role model, sometimes the only affirming male influence in their lives. The level of Nassar's predation reaches even higher because he often knew the victims' parents, some of whom were fellow doctors, others who unwittingly sent patients to him. He even knew that some of the parents were police officers. He was so well practiced in his abuse and continually empowering himself that he believed he'd get away with it despite any parent's profession. He believed he was untouchable. This defendant not only robbed these children of their innocence, he robbed many of them of their good health. He performed no healing, only hurt, with so many heartbreaking stories of unnecessary treatments, misdiagnoses, inaccurate medical treatment, which we know has resulted in lasting, permanent damage. Many of these survivors wonder whether their now lifelong injuries could have been treated had he not wanted the continued access to their young bodies. He wasn't a world-renowned doctor. As one of our experts so eloquently put it in preparing this case for trial, he was performing hocus pocus medicine. Over the last 16 months, as I have prepared this case and lived this case and thrown my heart and soul into this case, I have often wondered, did he really think he was going to get away with this? Abusing so many for so many years, over 2 decades, so many sports, no patient, no child was safe, and yet he also abused some of our most prominent national heroes. Maybe he did think he could beat the odds. And you know what? For years, he did. What that did, that beating of the odds, to Kyle Stevens, to Jessica Tomashow, to Madeline Jones, to Kaylee Lorenz, to Bailey Lawrenson, to victims D and G and I, to Rachel Denhollander. History gave him guidance for the future. Every previous time there had been an allegation, nothing happened. His lies worked. This court heard from several women, some decades later, who were initially determined to be confused or to be liars. He was believed over these children: Larissa Boyce, Tiffany Thomas, Breanne Randall, Amanda Tomashow. Sometimes 4, 14, and 20 years have passed since those brave women told someone. You saw and heard firsthand. To know your truth, to be called a liar by not only your abuser, but to also not be believed by other trusting adults, what does that do to a person? Adults who were supposed to protect you and could have made it stop and could have prevented others from the same fate. What does that do to a child? We saw firsthand what it does. And with each time he got away, he was empowered to continue and perfect and abuse even more. It should not take finding a collection of 37,000 vile and disgusting images to believe these women and girls. It shouldn't take investigative journalists to expose predators. It should not take one brave woman put in the unenviable position and choice to go public with her name and be the only public person for months. But thank God we have these journalists and that they expose this truth and that they continue to cover this story. Thank God Rachel Denhollander made that first contact with the reporter and decided to allow them to publish her name. How many times have we heard that without those stories and Rachel, victims would not have reported. They would not be here to speak this week to expose what truly happened all these years behind those doors and under that towel. We have all learned a few lessons from this case and these past 7 days of powerful testimony. As I reflect back an entire semester of a college class in sexual abuse, grooming behaviors, why victims delay, and predatory behavior has played out these past week and a half. But as we look back on this case in the last 7 days, I'm struck by a number of observations. What does it say about our society that victims of sexual abuse have to hide their pain for years when they did nothing wrong? What does it say about our society when victims do come forward and they are automatically met with skepticism and doubt, treated as liars until proven true? What do we take away from this? These have been important narratives to hear and witness and listen to. They will be the words that burn down cultural stereotypes and cultural myths. And I have a few takeaways and lessons I hope anyone watching these past 7 days has learned and will take away with them. The first is that we must start by believing. Other adults must start by believing when children and young people report abuse, regardless of who the perpetrator is, no matter his education, his position, the respect he commands, or the awards and adorations he has received. Research shows that false allegations are slim, that most perpetrators are serial offenders, and that how a victim, especially a child, is treated when they disclose, if they are believed and supported and not blamed, can affect their well-being for years, can support better outcomes within the criminal justice system, and can protect other victims. Yet, even after the first day and the conclusion of the first week, it was brought to my attention by many involved in this case that there are still people in this very community and elsewhere, I imagine, who are saying that these women were all in it for the money or the attention. Are you kidding me? After 150 heart-wrenching, raw, graphic, visceral impact statements, how can anyone still believe that? Even to this day, even as this historic sentencing hearing is broadcast around the globe, there are still likely people who doubt. Perhaps those 2,000 folks who voted for this defendant as school board member. Perhaps the many petition writers we are aware of who included doctors and trainers and athletes and lawyers who spared nothing to come to the defense of this defendant over 16 months ago and continued to defend him for months, even after he had been charged with Kyle Stevens' abuse. I hope and pray that they're watching, that they're listening, and that they have learned their lesson. The second lesson I take away, and I hope others do, is that anyone can be a perpetrator. Anyone can be a serial sexual abuser. This defendant stole, cheated, and lied. He stole these victims' innocence. He lied about his behavior, and he cheated parents and the community and the world of the trust they held in doctors, prominent physicians, and prominent community members. Experts teach on this issue. Russell Strand, a retired Army criminal investigator, teaches on offender dynamics and behavior. Strand talks about how abusers have three personas. The first is the public one for all to see. The second is the uninhabited persona, what you only let others close to you see. And we all have those two personas. But the third persona is the hidden and secret one. It's hidden in the mind and the eyes and the beliefs of the perpetrator. And that persona is often hidden well. Serial child molesters hide among us. We know that this defendant had a good persona, a good public persona at least. He was the good guy, the goofy guy, the Olympic doctor, the medical school professor, the gymnastics god. He was a religious and pious man, a father, a husband, a friend, a school board candidate, a man of honor and passion, so kind and giving and always approachable. He never charged for his services, and he saw patients basically anywhere. But we know without a doubt after this 7 days, what we on this team have known for 16 months, that Nassar's third hidden persona, just as Strand discusses, that he is possibly the most prolific serial child sexual abuser in history, a selfish child molester who spared no one. Nassar hid behind that outer facade that is different and faked and not real, but that people believed were real. People came to his defense. They believed that they were the man that he wanted them to see and not the monster hiding beneath. As a society, our response cannot be that he couldn't do this, or that I knew his character, I knew he wasn't capable of this kind of crime. It's because no one wants to see it. The only person who sees this side are his victims. Then the perpetrator goes back, shows only what he wants the world to see. This is how he got away with this for so long and got people to believe him over the many, many, many victims who reported. Anyone can be an abuser. The third takeaway from this week is that delayed disclosure of child sexual abuse is not unique. In fact, it's quite the norm. Kids don't report sexual abuse right away, either because the abuser is a trusted adult, especially when it's a doctor, especially when they are so young and have no sexual experience to understand what is wrong. The fourth takeaway is that predators groom their victims and families. This is so confusing to so many women. He was so nice. He gave them presents and trinkets and desserts. He broke rules for them, especially when you contrast his behavior in relationship to the harsh and cruel and abusive coaches that these girls were exposed to. He was only doing that to gain their trust, to confuse them, and get what he wanted. The fourth takeaway is we must teach our girls and boys to speak up. Kids are told to be respectful of adults. Girls and boys don't speak up. It is easier to put up with discomfort than cause waves. And when they are brave, nothing happens. We teach our girls and daughters to be too nice, to just ignore and put up with uncomfortable situations, to stay silent when they should be allowed to be heard. And we need to teach them to continue to speak up until someone listens and helps. The sixth takeaway from this week and a half is that police and prosecutors must take on hard cases, regardless of who the offender is. They cannot shy away from tough cases because of who the offender is or his position in the community. They cannot victim blame or wait until they have the perfect case. They cannot wait until they have dozens of victims who have come forward. Police and prosecutors must also start by believing, be victim-centered and offender-focused in their work. The final takeaway is that we as a society need investigative journalists more than ever. What finally started this reckoning and ended this decades-long cycle of abuse was investigative reporting. Without that first Indianapolis Star story in August of 2016, without the story where Rachel came forward publicly shortly thereafter, he would still be practicing medicine, treating athletes and abusing kids. Let that sink in for a minute. Right now, he would be at his office on Hagedorn and Hanna, not far from this courtroom, in the Michigan State University campus, abusing children, had it not been for the investigative reporters and Rachel who brought this case. We know federal law enforcement did not stop him. nor did trainers or coaches or deans or medical supervisors. Victim disclosures to adults didn't stop him. Reporters began the story, and excellent, victim-centered, offender-focused police and prosecutors grabbed the baton and brought us here today. I am proud of the work of the Michigan State University Police Department and our team at the Attorney General's office. There is no more supportive police chief in this country than Chief Jim Dunlap. And our victims and the public are incredibly lucky to have their case investigated by arguably the best sex crimes detective in the country and her team. Detective Lieutenant Andrea Munford is not only a smart, dedicated, hardworking investigator, but she is also empathetic and compassionate. Our victims are also lucky to have the full and unwavering support of the Michigan Attorney General, Bill Schuette, who from day one of taking on this case has supported this prosecution fully. Our team is so proud of these young women for speaking. So many have shared their story and name and face, and they should feel no shame because they did nothing wrong. He did. It's worth remembering once again that it was one woman who came public first. And when she did, she was ridiculed. Folks rallied behind him. They tried to discredit her. They signed petitions in support of him. They believed him over her because of who he was purported to be. People continued to support him in this very community and believe him after we charged Kyle Stevens' case, after he faced multiple counts of criminal sexual conduct first against a minor. They chose to believe his lies over the words of a young woman who had nothing to gain by coming forward, nothing. Some of his support wavered after he was charged with possessing tens of thousands of images of child pornography. Yet, still, there were people in power who had ideas he was framed and the images were planted, who was telling other victims this as they knew their truth. At the same time that these folks were supporting him and putting out those false narratives, these women and countless more you haven't met and who may be watching and reading knew their truth. They knew he had abused him, and they watched him continue to lie about committing that abuse. It has not been an easy process for these victims, especially Rachel, all alone publicly for many, many months. To be accused of being a Pied Piper of sorts in court and the press, to be accused of somehow planting this idea of victimhood in other women's minds. The gripping testimony these past 2 weeks have shown how absurd those arguments are. You have seen firsthand the effects this abuse has had on these women. That is tangible, physical evidence that this happened, that these women were abused, not bandwagon jumpers, not money grabbers, women and girls who were abused. For victims to realize years and decades later that they were in fact abused, sometimes hundreds of times, when they really thought they were receiving legitimate treatment, it shifts their equilibrium. It shatters their sense of the world, their sense of safety, their conception of trust. It has caused them to question what they believe and know, and that has lasting consequences. Unlike any other crime that comes before you, Judge Aquilina, sexual abuse and assault so deeply affects and alters victims' lives. It seeps and oozes and permeates into every pore and crevice of a victim's life. It can alter their life's trajectory. We've seen that time and time again this week when we've heard of mention of depression and anxiety and panic attacks, suicidal thoughts, self-medication, self-harm, questioning of self-worth, and even when we heard from Donna Markman some 7 days ago about the suicide of Chelsea. Nassar sentenced these little girls and other little girls to lives in prison by fear and doubt. The courage it takes to overcome so many little obstacles to try and right your world and just live normal daily life again is immeasurable. They had to overcome these obstacles on a daily basis for the rest of their lives. His sexual abuse turned their world upside down and inside out. But this process of support in this courtroom and the community helps bring healing. Your Honor, I wholeheartedly want to thank you and your staff for graciously allowing each victim to be heard. When we fashioned a sentence agreement allowing for the reported victims to speak, which at that point was in the neighborhood of 120 victims, survivors, we wanted all to feel involved in this process and to have their voice heard. What we have witnessed here in this courtroom exceeded even my wildest dream. What we have witnessed here is unprecedented, but hopefully not the last time that victims will be heard in this manner. The compassion and empathy that you have shown these women, the support and encouraging words you have given each one, coupled with what I know is the belief that they and their stories matter, will be remembered by all long after this case is over. Over 150 women had courage to walk into this courtroom, most to be publicly identified and outed to the world as a Nassar victim for the first time, yet they had the grace and the courage to speak their truth and become survivors. To each survivor, thank you. Thank you for coming forward, for trusting us, for doing what is so hard and difficult, especially when you reported to the police, especially to those involved in our charging cases, and especially to those who have had to testify in court. On behalf of the entire Attorney General and Michigan State University Police Department team, we believe you and always have. We thank you. We are proud to stand up for and with you, and you are our heroes. We have seen the worst of humanity and the best in these past few days. The pain and destruction caused by evil, selfish takers like this defendant. But we have also seen how one voice can start a movement, how reckoning can deliver justice, how a community can support and empower and start healing. During these last 7 days on our screen, you have seen countless young, innocent faces. That was on purpose. Every day at this podium that I stand, you saw strong, brave, fierce survivors come here. But that's not who Larry Nassar saw. He was attracted and abused to those young girls in those pictures. But Your Honor, what you did not see are the sweet, young, innocent faces of girls who have been spared a similar fate because these brave women all spoke up and, more importantly, never gave up. There is no doubt he would have continued to abuse unabated for the rest of his life. I tell these survivors to be proud of what you have accomplished because you are survivors. You have referenced the army of survivors that this proceeding and his abuse has created. This past weekend at women's marches around the country, signs with Kyle Stevens, quote, someone that the world did not even know was affiliated with this case some 5 days before. Those quotes were raised on signs. Little girls don't stay little forever. They turn into strong women who have come back to destroy your world. You heard from Jennifer Rood Bedford, and she concluded by saying, stand for truth, resolve for change, be committed. At this particular moment in history, this sentencing hearing will be viewed as a turning point in how our community, our state, our nation, our culture looks at sexual abuse. This courtroom in the Ingham County Circuit Court was where the shame that many survivors felt was exorcised from them and put where it belongs, right on him. When each survivor came forward and shared their name, told their truth, supported each other, that shift grew. The world has witnessed what happens when victims are treated with respect, dignity, empathy, compassion, and are truly supported by police, prosecutors, and the criminal justice system and courts. What is obvious is that a strong group of determined women can in fact change the world and will. The fact that the women led the investigation, the prosecution team, and that 3 female judges now sentenced defendant Nassar is poetic justice. As I reflect on the last 7 days of the sentencing hearing, it became clear that each day more women and girls were empowered. It was evidenced by our growing number, people that were reaching out to us to come to speak their truth. These women and girls have transformed themselves before our very eyes. From victim to survivor to champion for justice and advocates for change. And all of this on the world outside will carry on. But I want to recenter you and this court and all involved back on the reason we're here. The sentencing of defendant Larry Nassar for his admitted conduct against numerous young girls. He sexually assaulted them. He did so under the guise of medical treatment, and he did so for his own sexual purpose and gratification. He carried out his plot through a decades-long process he honed and perfected, creating perfect conditions for his predatory behavior, until these brave women brought it all down. Sentencing, Your Honor, must protect, punish, and deter. Through your sentence, I ask you to do all 3. Judge Aquilina, I ask you to bring these victims the justice they so deserve. We ask you to follow the sentence agreement and sentence the defendant to a minimum of 40 years to at least 125 years in prison, or a sentence tail that you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your words. On behalf of defendant,
Your Honor, I prepared some remarks today. My client prepared some remarks that he's going to be reading to the court. But I want to start off on some remarks that I have not prepared. This court has provided a foundation for our country to watch our judicial system as it's happening and unfolding. We have a Constitution in place. We learn about the Constitution when we go to law school. Contrary to what the personal or the perception of Larry's legal team may be, we are all upholding the same document. He has an absolute right to a zealous advocacy. He's got an absolute right to a defense. He has an absolute right to be represented by counsel. And while some may disagree to the way that this case transpired, the conduct of counsel, this is what our Constitution permits. And I can tell you and anybody else listening that unequivocally I would be standing next to this man for every trial that he would hold, every sentencing that he would have, because that's what our Constitution requires. This is not about us. This is not about Larry. This is not about his legal team. This is about the victims that were before the court for the last 7 days. But I will tell you, the anger and hatred that they expounded on the court is something that Larry saw, we all saw, and we all heard. As we sat in the court this morning, we received an email from somebody who was anonymous that wished death upon our kids for standing next to the man and upholding a Constitution, a document and an oath that we took when we all went to law school, whether you're a judge, a defense lawyer, or work for the government. We are doing our jobs. You are doing your job, and the government is doing their job. I would stand by the counsel that we have representing Dr. Nassar, and I would represent Larry again. Now, People ask us all the time if Larry's sorry for what he has done, and others ask what Larry is like, while some comment on how he's changed. I'll tell you that Larry is sorry for what he's done, but we realize that these words are completely inconsequential to those that are listening and fall woefully short of an adequate apology to fully address what has transpired. As adults, we understand there are consequences for our actions. Larry's actions have led to an unquantifiable amount of pain. As adults, we should be the only ones who feel pain for our own actions. Sadly, one of the many tragedies in this case is the pain that was articulated these past 7 days is not residing with Larry, but instead, and more significantly, it is felt by the 100+ women who have addressed him in court. He is sorry for the hurt that he has caused, and he is sorry to each and every one of the individuals who have come before your honor. But an apology is not going to be enough. Sometimes individuals can take solace that a small portion of the pain that someone has inflicted on others can be seen in their own appearance and personality. Although it pales in comparison to what we heard these past few days, Larry's soul is broken. He is the shell of a person that we all first met. He is reserved and soft-spoken. His tears are more frequent, and our conversations are more somber. As you all know, we sat with Larry these last few days and saw what he saw. He saw the pain, hurt, and anger on your faces. Your words will stay with him and leave an indelible mark on his soul for the remainder of his life. He realizes that what he is feeling is nothing compared to the pain and hurt all of his victims are feeling and were discussed in this courtroom today. I can assure you that your words have pierced his soul and softened his voice. That will never change. I know Larry wants to address the court as well.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You need to come up right up to the podium, right to the microphone. What would you like me to know?
It's just a short statement. Your words these past several days, your words have had a significant emotional effect on myself and has shaken me to my core. I also recognize that what I am feeling pales in comparison to the pain, trauma, and emotional destruction that all of you are feeling. There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred. An acceptable apology.
Sir, you need to stay at the microphone or they can't hear you.
An acceptable apology to all of you is impossible to write and convey. I will carry your words with me for the rest of my days.
Sir, I hope that's true. I hope you are shaken to your core. Your victims are clearly shaken to their core. And I know there are still some who ask, are you broken because you got caught? First, let me address counsel. I agree with your words in regard to no one should blame defense counsel, and vigilante crime is not tolerated. So I hope that no one will do anything untoward against counsel, their children, their families, their firms, their cars, whatever it is. That is crime. Crime was crime. Solves absolutely nothing. Please respect their job. It's a difficult one. I know I've been in their shoes, and the Sixth Amendment does guarantee each defendant the right to counsel. It doesn't matter what the defendant has done, but they have the right to counsel. I also want to say, that being said, we also have the First Amendment. So you are all free to have your own opinions. And it's always a balancing act between the First Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, all of the due process and other amendments to the Constitution. They are all valuable in their own way. And that's why we have an organized and just society. And that's why we are here today, because this defendant has been brought to justice. Do not make it worse, please. Before I get to sentencing, I want to talk about a couple of things. And first, I've said what I need to say to the victims. I have a little bit more to say. You are no longer victims. You are survivors. You're very strong, and I've addressed you individually. Before I say anything further, I don't know if you all know this, and I know that the world is watching. I know this because I'm on the bench every day, and this isn't the only heinous crime that appears in this court. The National Crime Victimization Survey that's done by the Justice Department annually reports that 310 out of every 1,000 assaults are reported to police, which means that 2 out of 3 go unreported. The voices of the survivors have asked everyone, report, keep your voice up. Rachel's voice hopefully will raise these numbers of reports and all of your voices. But that statistic does not include children 12 and under. 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused by their 18th birthday. 1 in 7 girls, 1 in 25 boys by their 18th birthday. That means that in the United States, I'm not talking about any other country, but in the United States, 400,000 babies born in the U.S. will become victims of child sexual abuse. It stops now. Speak out like these survivors. Become part of the army. I do one case at a time. And I really so very much appreciate all of your thank yous. I've read some of the Twitters and Facebooks and all of what's going on in the media. I'm not special. I'm doing my job. If you come into my courtroom any Wednesday and watch sentencing, I give everybody a voice. I give defendants a voice, their families when they're here. I give victims a voice. I try to treat everybody like family because that's the justice system that I was raised to believe in. I came to this country stateless. I'm naturalized. My father's Maltese, my mother's German, and I was raised on old country values. And my grandmother always told me, and my parents always told me, my grandfather too, that America is the greatest country. I believe that. That's why I served in the military. That's why I've always done community service. I'm not really well liked because I speak out. I don't have many friends because I speak out. If you ask me a question, you better be ready for the answer. I speak out because I want change, because I don't believe in hiding the truth, and I'm not saying I'm always right, but I try. I also don't believe that one size fits all when it comes to sentencing. Another reason I listen. I know that there are some judges, for every crime, they give the same punishment. I don't think that's justice. I believe in individualized sentencing. I follow the Constitution, and I believe our system works. I also believe these survivors. Now, there's case law about how I can consider what I can consider. And first and foremost, my sentence reflects the 7 in regard to who defendant pled to. But the remainder of you, 161 others, add to the credibility of those 7. So technically, I'm considering everything, everyone, because your crime, all of your crimes, the depth of them have cut into the core of this community and many communities and all of the families and people we don't even know. And sir, the media has asked me to release your letter. I'm not going to do that. Council may object, the media may object, but there is some information in here that troubles me in regard to the victims. And I don't want them re-victimized by the words that you have in here. But I do want to read some more of your letter. And the reason I want to do that is because I've considered it in sentencing as an extension of your apology and whether I believe it or not. So I want you to hear your words. I've already read some and I'm not reading every line. Well, let me begin. The federal judge went ballistic at sentencing since I pled guilty to the state cases and spent 10% on the federal case and 90% on the state cases and civil suits. She gave me 60 years instead of 5 to 20 years, in parentheses, 3 consecutive 20-year sentences. I pleaded guilty to possession of porn from 9/2004 to 12/2004, 4 months. The prosecutor even admitted that I never belonged to any porn sites, any chat rooms, was not on the dark web, and also they could not prove I viewed it. It was all deleted, of course. I shared my electronics, and I could not prove that. So for 4 months of porn possession from 2004, I was sentenced to 60 years. Not proper, appropriate, fair. Going down a few lines. What I did in the state cases was medical, not sexual. But because of the porn, I lost all support, thus another reason for the state guilty plea. Let me move down further. So I tried to avoid a trial to save the stress to this community, my family, the victims. Yet look what is happening. It is wrong. Let me move down further. I was a good doctor because my treatments worked, and those patients that are now speaking out were the same ones that praised and came back over and over and referred family and friends to see me. The media convinced them that everything I did was wrong and bad. They feel I broke their trust. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It is just a complete nightmare. the stories that are being fabricated to sensationalize this, then the AG would only accept my plea if I said what I did was not medical and was for my own pleasure. They forced me to say that, or they were going to trial and not accepting the plea. I wanted to plead no contest, but the AG refused that. I was so manipulated by the AG and now Aquilina, and all I wanted was to minimize stress to everyone, like I wrote earlier. Going down a little bit further. In addition, with the federal case, my medical treatments with the Olympic/national team gymnastics were discussed as part of the plea. The FBI investigated them in 2015 and found nothing substantial because it was medical. Now they are seeking the media attention and financial reward. Would you like to withdraw your plea?
No, Your Honor.
Because you are guilty, aren't you? Are you guilty, sir?
I said my plea, exactly.
The new sign language has become treatment. These quotes, these air quotes, I will never see them again without thinking of you and your despicable acts. I don't care how they're used, I will always think of quotes and the word treatment. It was not treatment, what you did. It was not medical. There is no medical evidence that was ever brought. When this case first came to me, and I've told you this, and I apologize to the Olympians and athletes, but I have 5 children, 2 dogs. My parents live with me. I work 4 jobs. I don't have much time for television. I don't watch sports. Although last year I was a soccer coach, much to the laughter of my family. I didn't know anything about you, or your name, or anything that was going on. And so when I kept saying, we're going to trial, here's the date, and everyone wanted more time, I said, no, here's the cutoff. And then the cases were merged and we delayed it. And I still thought, well, maybe there's a defense of medical treatment. And why did I think that? Because it's my job to be fair and impartial, but also because my 2 brothers and my father are very well known and respected doctors. Real doctors with real treatments and research, dedicated to healing. I haven't considered that in this case, but I have heard from your survivors now that they trust doctors like I trust the doctors in my family and the doctors I go to. But I still thought, well, there's a defense of medical treatment, and there are changes in the medical community every day for the betterment. So up until the time you pled, I believed that maybe there was a defense here, despite the felony information. I was ready for trial. Your counsel was ready for trial. The Attorney General's office was ready for trial. You, sir, decided to plead because there was no medical treatment. You did this for your pleasure and your control. This letter, which comes 2 months after your plea, tells me that you have not yet owned what you did, that you still think that somehow you are right, that you are a doctor, that you're entitled, that you don't have to listen, and that you did treatment. I wouldn't send my dogs to you, sir. There's no treatment here. You finally told the truth. Inaction is an action. Silence is indifference. Justice requires action and a voice, and that is what has happened here in this court. 168 buckets of water were placed on your so-called match that got out of control. I also, like law enforcement, or like the Attorney General, want to thank law enforcement for their investigation, but I also want to be the voice on behalf of these survivors who asks law enforcement to continue their fine work and to also include the federal government. There has to be a massive investigation as to why there was inaction, why there was silence. Justice requires more than what I can do on this bench. I want to also applaud all of the counsel in the Attorney General's office. I want to also applaud defense counsel. You all have done fine work. You've made me proud of our legal system. We all work together for the betterment of our community, and that is law enforcement, prosecutors, defense counsel, investigators. There are countless people. It's the only way our system works. We need this balance. So all of you, when I look at myself as Lady Justice, my arms are like this. They are balanced. Prosecution, defense, they're balanced. It only starts to tip after there's a plea and after I take into consideration everything that's happened. So I want everyone to understand I've also done my homework. I always do. People versus Wakalowski, I'm sure I slaughtered the name, I apologize, but it is spelled W-A-C-L-A-W-S-K-I. 286 Mich 634. It's a 2009 case. And in it, and I want you to clearly understand, it says, plainly, the law does not limit victims' impact statements to direct victims. It doesn't say, and I have found nowhere that limits me from having you hear all of your victims. As I said before, when counsel came to me and said, we're not going to go to trial, despite our court having already sent out 200 of the 800 juror requests. And they told me their plea, and would I consider it in lieu of trial? There was the agreement between us because I always, and they know it, they are familiar with me, let people speak. And I wanted all victims. And we had a discussion about which victims. And of course there was an objection to one of them. I let it come in anyway. That was part of the plea that you entered into to allow the victim impact statements. Because after that discussion, I know your lawyers, as good as they are, sat down with you and said, the judge is going to allow this. And when it comes down to it, I know it also because this was signed by the Attorney General, by defendant, and by defendant's counsel on November 22nd, 2017. Aside from the letter that you wrote a couple of months after your plea, which tells me you still don't get it, there's something I don't understand and I want to make clear. Sir, you knew you had a problem. That is clear to me. You knew you had a problem from a very young age, even before you were a doctor. You could have taken yourself away from temptation, and you did not. But worse yet, there isn't a survivor who hasn't come in here and said how world-renowned you were. I trust what they say. You could have gone anywhere in the world to be treated. You could have gone to any resort, any doctor, place where you could get treatment. In Europe, they have all sorts of hidden places for things like this. No one had to know, and you could have found some treatment, some help, taken some medicine. You would have done that if you had cancer. I know you would have. You're about self-preservation. But you decided to not address what's inside you that causes this control urge, that causes you to be a sexual predator. So your urges escalated, and based on the numbers that we all know go unreported, I can't even guess how many vulnerable children and families you actually assaulted. Your decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable. I don't have to add words because your survivors have said all of that. I don't want to repeat it. You can't give them back their innocence, their youth. You can't give a father back his life, or one of your victims her life when she took it. You can't return the daughter to the mother, the father to the daughter. You played on everyone's vulnerability. I'm not vulnerable. Not to you, not to other criminals at that podium. I swore to uphold the Constitution and the law, and I am well trained. I know exactly what to do. And at this time, I'm going to do it. And I want you to know, as much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and anywhere you walk, destruction will occur to those most vulnerable. Now, I am honoring the agreement. I'm also honoring what's been requested of me. And I want you to know, I'm not good at math. I have a cheat sheet. I'm only a lawyer. I know that you have a lot of education in physics and math, but I have a cheat sheet. It is my privilege on counts 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 18, and 24. To sentence you to 40 years. And when I look at my cheat sheet, 40 years, just so you know and you can count it off your calendar, is 480 months. The tail end, because I need to send a message to the parole board in the event somehow God is gracious, and I know He is, and you survive the 60 years in federal court first, and then you start on my 40 years, you've gone off the page here as to what I'm doing. My page only goes to 100 years. Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant. I need everyone to be quiet. I still have contempt powers. I told you I'm not nice. I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger. You remain a danger. I'm a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I have many defendants come back here and show me the great things they've done in their lives after probation, after parole. I don't find that's possible with you. So you will receive jail credit on counts 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 18 of 369 days. On count 24, you will have 370 days jail credit. If you are ever out, which is doubtful, you would be required to register with the Michigan Sex Offenders Registration Act, complying with all of the requirements of that act, in addition to global position monitoring system. You would wear a GPS. You will pay restitution in the amount to be determined based on whatever amounts are submitted, and your attorneys can ask me for a restitution hearing so that I can determine what a reasonable amount is for the victims. I am leaving restitution open as long as those victims have issues that can be medically documented. You will comply with DNA testing and pay a $60 fee for that. I suspect that was already done, but you owe $60 back to the county for that, or law enforcement, whoever will put it in the right pocket. You must submit to HIV testing and complete counseling associated with HIV and AIDS. You must waive confidentiality and allow test results and medical information obtained from this test to be released to the court. You will pay $476 in state costs. You will pay a crime victims assessment in the amount of $130. Does counsel wish to address court costs and fines? I don't know his financial state.
Judge, he doesn't have any money to pay in court costs and fines. If the court wants to impose it, the court can impose it.
I'm not imposing any court costs and fines, and here's the reason. I don't know what he has or what he'll get in the future. The victims deserve the money. The county will survive one way or another. I'm also going to make recommendations to the Michigan Department of Corrections for mental health treatment. I understand he has some medical conditions and he should be allowed to take medicine for that. He should have individual and group counseling, treatment for sexual predators, whatever they allow. I'm also going to send a message. I'm not sure, but I believe I read an article, sir, that you were treating people in prison that don't have a license, don't commit any more crimes. I know you don't have any more lives to give, but you can't be treating people. You're not a doctor. So I'm not sure how that's happening, but I wanted to send that message. You have 21 days to appeal, 10 days to request court-appointed counsel. Do you acknowledge receipt of your appellate rights?
Your Honor, I've got the notice of right to appeal and I'm providing it to my client now.
Do you acknowledge it?
Yeah. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well, let me just say to the media, again, I'm just doing my job. I know you all want to talk to me. My secretary has informed me that I have a growing stack of requests from print media, from television, from magazines, from around the world, literally. This story is not about me. It never was about me. I hope I've opened some doors, but you see, I'm a little stupid because I thought everybody did what I did. And if they didn't, maybe they ought to, but I do this and have been doing it. And if you don't believe me, the keeper of my words is right by my side, and lawyers who are hearing this are shaking their heads saying, yep, I've waited too long as she lets everybody talk. Sometimes people get upset. I don't care, I get paid the same. So as to the media who want to talk with me, I'm not going to be making any statements. I know that my office, and I may have even, I don't know, it's been a long couple of weeks, conveyed that after this is over. It's just not my story. After the appellate period runs, with victims by my side to tell their stories, I might answer some more questions than what I said on the record. I don't know what more I could possibly say. But I'm not going to talk with any media person until after the appeal period, and even then, if you talk to me about this case, I will have a survivor with me because it is their story. So I wanted everybody to hear that from me. I respect all of the media outlets. You've done just a fabulous job here. There hasn't been any commotion or upset by this, and I do believe in the First Amendment, so I thank you all for being here because it's an important story for the survivors. As to today, I know that there are a lot of survivors, family members, husbands, friends, a lot of people in the courtroom. You have voices. I'm going to leave the courtroom. Defendant will leave the courtroom. The attorneys may stay. Victims, family members, survivors, you may stay in the courtroom and talk with media. You can have your own press conference right here. Spur of the moment sometimes works out the best, doesn't it? Again, I won't make a statement until after the appeal period. And again, if there's any survivor then who, at that point, if somebody wants to talk to me, I'm sure you'll be moved on to another story, but if you're not, please give your names to the victim's advocate so that I can contact you, because please, media, do not contact me on this story without a survivor. It's their story. I thank everybody in this case. Sir, I hope somewhere you have heard everybody's words, and it really does resonate with you. Anything else for the record?
Nothing on behalf of people, I'm sorry.
Nothing but half,
No, Your
Mr.
Honor.
Lansing.
All right, so the media is asked to stay here with all those lovely people who may want to speak with you. Thank you. That's all for the record.
All right. Wow, so a very emotional day here at the 7th day of the sentencing for Dr. Larry Nassar, the former Michigan State University sports doctor. You can see there, this is the Michigan Assistant Attorney General. She had some words earlier on in today's sentencing. They heard from victims for the past 7 days. Ultimately, 156 victims came forward to say their piece. In total, it was 169 impact statements. And Judge Rosemary Aquilina there saying it was an honor and a privilege for her to sentence Dr. Larry Nassar to ultimately 175 years. Now, it was already known that Dr. Nassar would probably spend his lifetime in jail. He is 54 years old, and he's also facing a previous sentence of 60 years for child pornography charges, and then will also face another case, another sentencing after this one on a separate sexual conduct charge in the state of Michigan. So lots of charges that he was facing, but here I think his fate is absolutely sealed. He'll be in prison for his lifetime. We've been watching in the Fox 5 DC digital newsroom for the past 7 days. We've heard from Allie Reisman, other notable gymnasts. Of course, the whole thing concluded with Rachel Den Hollander. She was the victim who actually outed Dr. Larry Nassar in September 2016 in the Indy Star, and she had some final words for him to kind of conclude all of the victims' statements, saying that he ruined their lives and that he deserved what he was going to get. And then we also heard the judge read Dr. Larry Nassar's statement that his letter that he had actually prepared after he pleaded guilty to what was ultimately 7 criminal sexual conduct charges for this case. And the letter said that these victims were looking for financial gain, for media attention, and the judge was quick to call that out and ultimately, like I said, say that it was an honor for her to sentence him to what he got. So a standing ovation there for Judge Aquilina in Lansing, Michigan. Guys, thanks for joining us here in the Fox 5 DC digital newsroom on YouTube and on Facebook. Please do feel free to comment, tell us what you think, any questions, direct them our way.
I just signed your.
That quote. All right, y'all, we're back in the newsroom here on YouTube. We just went on Facebook for a quick live to kind of show everybody the ultimate sentencing for Dr. Nassar. Erin, you mentioned the car chase in Phoenix. I do have that up in the right corner of your screen if you're interested in that. Not quite sure how close they're going to get to it or if we'll have much chopper footage of that, but thanks for reminding me and pointing that out. I know Phoenix probably took that right away with a little commentary from their chopper. But back in the newsroom to talk a little bit about this Nassar sentencing, which, by the way, you can probably tell I'm kind of visibly emotionally shaken from hearing the judge's words and sort of seeing Twitter blow up.
Twitter is insane right now, guys. I'm literally looking at my feed and it's nothing but this is the sentence, this is how long. But the savagery of the judge's line, I just signed your death sentence. Amazing. Your death warrant, excuse me, quote unquote. I just signed your death warrant. I can't. I mean,
will say,
everybody's emotional, I feel.
It's hugely emotional. We've been watching this for the 7 days of this testimony. Like I mentioned earlier, 156 women came forward to make their impact statements. And that's not even everyone that kind of came forward to speak for others. There were almost 170 people. Now, originally, court officials said, we expect about 88 or so to come forward. It was nearly double in the end.
It was double.
So about nearly double than what they thought came forward, said their statements. Some of them, of course, very, very powerful. We took a lot of them to air. Notables, of course, from some of the gold medalists from Rio. I also thought this was interesting. Back when his letter was being read, if you guys remember, I'm going to pull this quickly full screen. Dominique Moceanu, gold medalist from Atlanta, 1996. I was a big fan. I followed the Magnificent Seven, of course, way back then. She was saying, am I hearing his words correctly? Narcissistic much. Just noting that he actually had the gall to make that statement, to write those words after he had already pleaded guilty and was there for his sentencing hearing.
Yeah.
So the judge, obviously presiding over this for many days, a lot of people tweeting about their support for her and for her saying this was an honor for her to sentence him to this many years.
Yeah. I mean, and what can you say? What can you say, guys? I feel like justice has been served for the many women that have had to go through these traumatic experiences that have perhaps shut down. And honestly, this is mentally hard, I feel like, on anybody. And for the 80 that were supposed to come forth, and then you have double the amount, I feel like that's empowering. I feel like they united as one and were like, guys, no more. This is not going to happen to anybody else. And this is the outcome of that.
Exactly. I mean, we saw moments, of course, of Nassar getting emotional himself, crying on the stand, head in hand. There were moments where he sort of broke down, but it didn't sway the judge, Aquilina, at all.
Absolutely not.
She was firm in her decision, and it wasn't likely to affect her decision. I was reading a little more about this. Again, Larry Nassar is 54 years old. He was already likely to spend his life in prison, even without these many, many years sort of compiled on top, but from these previous charges of child porn and other things. But it was up to ultimately what was the number going to be, and we find out that she just tacked more and more on, and ultimately it was 175. Of course, all the women who came forward talking about, because of the physical abuse, what they suffered emotionally and mentally throughout the years, the anxiety, the depression, even some of them leading to self-harm. We heard from one mother whose daughter killed herself a number of years ago, which was just, wow, what an emotional statement that was in court. So lots of really disturbing information coming from the army of survivors who came forward in this case.
And what you do in the dark shall always come out into the light. So this is exactly what happened. And,
I'm sure we'll be hearing from more of these U.S. gymnasts that we know, Ali Reisman, like I mentioned, Dominique Moceanu, but also others who were in that courtroom there to support, to hear the words from the Michigan Assistant Attorney General, who opened up this morning's, or sort of, actually rather closed it, after Rachel Den Hollander closed the victim statement portion. She was the one that actually ultimately outed him in September 2016. So the camera flashed over to her, and it was a moment to kind of show that she was sort of concluding the whole thing. So really just a lot of emotion. I'm kind of like high strung right now sitting in this news.
No, absolutely. Feel the energy. I know. You've been in so good covering, and you've been bringing everything up to date.
As much as we could find it, I thought it was really important to even tape and play back some of this testimony, because it would happen early in the morning. They get started earlier out in Michigan, and then we wanted to make sure we got it and we would play it out in our afternoon show. So some of you here on YouTube probably have joined us for some of these days. Again, this was the 7th day, the ultimate day, 7 days of sentencing, and it is over for now. He has 21 days to appeal, but we know the conclusion and we sort of know where to go. It goes from here. So anyway, in switching gears a little bit, you're looking at this car chase in Phoenix. We just got word of it. I don't have a ton of details on it because I've been kind of focusing my energy on the Nassar
looks like it ended, right?
But it does look like it's ultimately
over.
Surrounded. I don't quite know. I know Phoenix is probably tracking this a little bit more, but if you're watching it, let me know. Schultze, thanks for good afternoon, and thanks for your comments, for following us as we kind of talk about, like I said, the army of survivors whom we've heard from during this sentencing.
I love that, the army of survivors.
Yeah,
that is so true. Right? That is a great way to put it. I love that.
It really is an army because they, like I said, they were expecting so much less. They got so much more, and it's been all over social. We've seen it all over Twitter, all over Twitter,
Instagram, everywhere, Facebook, TV, anywhere and everywhere. But yeah, it's just. It's really emotional. I'm like trying to keep tabs on Twitter right now, trying to see what's the latest.
Right, see the latest on Twitter. The quote that I was trying to come up with, that Rachel, like I said, the victim who first outed Dr. Nassar back in 2016, even though a lot of the sexual assaults happened way before. Some of these girls were young teens. They were, not even teens. They were pre-teens. The quote she used today in court was, "You chose to pursue wickedness." I thought that was really striking. A lot of people kind of using that quote to sum up what she was saying. Yeah. So, wow, what a day, guys. Yeah, it looks like this court case has sort of ended in, hopefully that everyone's okay. We don't really know the circumstances. I don't have any sound or commentary on this.
You said it's in Phoenix?
Yeah, this is a Phoenix car chase.
Do we know the background or no?
I'm trying to see here.
What prompted?
I don't know. Okay. If you guys know, and you're hearing some comments, let me know.
School us, let us know.
Looking for stuff as we're kind of rolling around here. But we have some other stuff in social news that we wanted to chat about too, right?
Yes, so let's perhaps sprinkle some love on this one. And we posted it on Instagram, guys. If you are following us, it's our latest post on Fox 5 DC.
Okay.
So love wins, guys. 2 Army captains became the first active duty same-sex couple to be married in New York. The newlyweds say that they hope their story inspires others to pursue their true self.
This is really cool. So let's bring up quickly this picture. We'll put it in box 1. Here it is, right below us here, and we're there up at the top of your screen. So there it is. We just Instagrammed it. This was 2 Army captains, so they became the first active duty same-sex couple. And was this at West Point, or were they West Point?
It was in West Point.
At West Point.
West Point.
Really interesting.
It went down in West Point. Yes.
Actually, a piece of me is almost surprised that this is the first time.
Right. Me too.
But the first time active duty. Okay, active duty, not the first time at West Point.
Exactly.
Or we don't know. Could be both.
It's definitely perhaps a little bit more detailed in the article, but I want to say it happened in West Point.
Wow.
Don't know if it's the first one as active duty.
Really, really interesting to see.
Our KTVU station in San Francisco shared it out. Yeah, they pulled it, made a story, put it up. So shout out to them for getting that content out.
That's really, really interesting. Okay.
So that's what's going on there on social media. I think that was the one highlight before this press that you were covering happened. And I feel like that's the talker right now.
That is
so I want to definitely.
So you got that and put it up.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that and get a little bit more specifics on that too, so we can put out there for you guys. What else is happening?
Also, I wanted to pull this up. I'm gonna see if I can get it over here. Give me 1 second. Let's talk quickly about Disney giving employees a one-time $1,000 cash bonus. Did you guys hear this? They're said that bonuses will go to full-time and part-time non-executive employees who are hourly or salaried.
That's awesome.
But those who have been with the company since January 2018, so very recent.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and they're based in the ones who are based in the U.S. So there are nearly 88,000 employees, hourly employees, who will be eligible for the education program, which they're also offering, which is going to cover tuition costs. And so there it is. Disney spreading the love, giving the money and education benefits to their employees.
I think that's great.
Kind of a cool thing, right?
That's awesome. And I feel that they're also, another person kind of in the same lines there is Starbucks.
Oh, yeah, what happened with them?
They're also increasing the pay for their current employees and giving them stock options and improving the benefits that they have for part-time employees too. And they're able now to accrue sick days, which was not an option in the past. So that's awesome. So I feel like Disney came out same time as Starbucks came out. So it's like a little tag team there.
I didn't know they weren't able to accrue them before. It's interesting. You wonder if some of these corporations with the tax bill, the tax reform happening, if that is obviously spurring a lot of this, or how long it will last, which other companies will come on board.
Absolutely.
Who will benefit from this.
Yeah, I'd love to see what big companies come on board, because there are so many, and sometimes you think, like, for example, I didn't know that about Starbucks with the sick day accrual. I had no idea. I thought it was just something. Exactly. I feel like sometimes we also perhaps take for granted our benefits, and we're like, oh yeah, everybody else shares the same ones. But absolutely not. So I feel like that's awesome.
Right.
Starbucks.
We forget about so many tens of thousands of people who are either dealing with hard times with hourly salaries, hourly employee kind of situations with or without benefits.
Absolutely.
And now this company, this very large company, will be giving out this money and benefits, which is great.
It's an enormous company.
So that's kind of cool. Did you guys hear about that? Let us know if you did or what you think about it.
Yeah.
Looks like this car chase is sort of, okay, they're closing in.
So did they have him? They have him.
It looks like the suspect is there. It's a little cloudy, a little dusty. They're surrounding him.
Yeah.
Something probably went awry. We don't know the backstory to this, but it looks like he is handcuffed and possibly wanted for something after this chase.
Snagged him. Got him.
Escaping away from cops here.
I'm sure we'll get more details on why and what propelled all this, because I want to know. Let's see, what else is happening?
Oh yeah, I want to quickly show you, we'll see on this, let's bring it up half screen again. Did you guys see this? Okay, Raisa, did you see this? Let me show you.
Let me cover my eyes.
I know,
what is it? Tell me when, tell me when.
When?
Okay.
This bus, right below us right here, this bus in Sutton, Massachusetts, check it out. It was filled with students. It had trouble with the icy road conditions. It slid out of control. There it is on like a cul-de-sac street. You can see it barely misses going in towards one of the houses, and it stopped right there by that sedan, that four-door car.
Which helped it stop.
And thankfully, no one was injured in this, guys, even though it was full of students. We're going to get this on repeat now.
Wow.
I've never seen a bus spin out of control like that.
Me neither.
It's a wowing
Were the
sight.
roads that horrible?
I suppose so, which is crazy because you think it's such a heavy, hot piece of machinery that is there, but it must have been icy enough and bad conditions enough that this bus
could have also been
grip.
the tires.
And can you imagine being that bus driver and feeling, oh my gosh, I'm out of control. What do I do? I'm responsible for this.
For all the lives in my bus, all the kids. Were they high school, elementary? Do we know what it was?
I don't quite know. It just said students. I don't know. It was in Sutton, Massachusetts. It just had trouble with the ice.
Wow.
Anyway.
And I mean, it can happen. Quite frightening, absolutely.
Quite frightening. And there it is. Luckily, no one was hurt in the car or the bus, but really, it could have done worse damage if that car wasn't there.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's a little video on repeat
that
we got going. Looks like we have a little more clarity on this car chase. Bringing it full screen here. Look at that clear chopper video. Look at the damage to that windshield. My goodness. So again, guys, we don't know the backstory to this, but looks like a SUV of some sort, which was ultimately stopped by police in a car chase in Phoenix, Arizona area. Waiting to find out more.
Get that details up as soon as we have them. I know.
Yeah, we'll get more details.
I feel like the newsroom also gets very into these car chases because just like you guys get into it, we're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Nobody knows.
We just don't know. Sometimes we do get into them. Sometimes they're really exciting. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
In a little lighter news today, it is National Compliment Day.
Oh, you're so sweet.
So you look amazing. And we're matching in color.
We're matching. We're opposites.
We are.
Yes. You slayed it, girl.
I love it. I love your necklace. Actually, I told you earlier and I forgot that it was actually National Compliment Day. So compliment your loved ones. Compliment anybody.
A stranger.
A stranger, even better.
I love that. Compliment a stranger.
And it's National Peanut Butter Day. So we were going to make kind of a funny video, but we went going through the cupboards in the kitchen, and there's no peanut butter in there. There's almond butter. There's no peanut butter, not even the type of peanut that you do or do not love. It's just, there's nothing in there, which is crazy to me because I love it.
The same here. And honestly, that cabinet was filled with a solid selection of them. I don't know what happened. They cleared them out. Maybe they put them up for the show.
I know for a fact producer Chris, who's one of our senior producers, loves it, and I think it's on his desk, but I haven't actually walked by to see it. He's like, I love peanut butter. So do I. And I particularly love the kind, I do eat the natural kind that you have to refrigerate. I like to kind of take a little bit of the oil out and make it really just chunky and hard. Okay, so we were having the argument before, chunky or creamy. Crunchy.
Chunky, crunchy. Give me the crunchy chunky. Thank you so much. Seriously. Creamy.
I prefer that too, the
Yes.
crunch. I will say I am transformed because when I was a child, I liked it creamy.
Ditto.
So why did it change?
Why did we change? You know what? We probably overkilled when we were younger, and now we're like, no, rebels. I want crunchy. It just tastes better too. I feel like the texture.
I know. Do you guys
I like
agree?
that crunch.
What do you like?
Creamy, crunchy. Comments.
Anybody a hater?
Oh my God! Please don't hate.
Oh, you guys are sweet. Thanks for the compliments. So National Compliment Day, National Peanut Butter Day. Get your peanut butter.
Let me see who our
Eat
viewers
it.
are wrong.
Let it nourish you. It is quite filling and quite good.
Okay, Aron, I'm just gonna douse you guys with some compliments. Aron, you are one of my favorite viewers.
So sweet.
You are amazing. Please stay awesome. Who else we got? Schultze.
Very sweet.
Schultze,
Thanks
you
for
are
watching our
another
stream.
sweetheart.
Always very smart and engaging.
Super
Lots
engaging.
Of comments. Lots of commentary to what we're talking about. Unbiased truth. Very sweet. Thank you.
Let's see. Can we scroll up?
Yeah, we got
Anybody
some
else?
more viewers. Who else is on with us? I know some of you guys are regulars. A lot of you probably came on earlier for the sentencing that we were watching, and we were able to grab that live, which is great.
Yeah.
In our afternoon hour here, as we kind of roll through whatever else is breaking. Right now, we just have this car chase. Looks like it's quite damaging, but also finishing up at this intersection in Phoenix. Like I said, I'm trying to look up some more info.
Yeah, let me see what else is popping in
Yeah,
the Twitter
you're looking
world.
at it.
Oh, here's another one. I don't know if you talked about it. In-N-Out managers, guess how much they make?
Oh, I don't know.
$160,000 a year.
Is that just a news kind of plug from today?
Yeah, it's been all over the place, and I don't know what propelled this news, but that's what I read on the headlines today. Making headlines. $160,000 is what managers at In-N-Out Burger make. And I read an interesting comment that like rubbed me a little funky. It was like, managing millennials, you should be making more. Guys, come on. Millennials.
There was a segment this morning on our morning show about how millennials spend so much money to stay fit. It was a kind of a funny package they put together. And there was someone in studio, a fit professional, to talk about how to keep it reasonable. Yes. And to, fill up your water bottle and what specific tools you need in the gym to sort of get yourself going that aren't going to break the bank. And it was a cool little segment. So it reminded me of that because millennials are out there doing their thing and they're spending a lot of money.
I feel like they also drop it on the outfits.
Yeah.
You gotta have the matching Spanx with the matching bra top. Come on, guys. You don't want to be rocking pink fuchsia Nikes with like an orange pant. I don't know.
They talked about the workout clothes and how people spend money on it. And I know it's part of it. We know it. We're in the millennial world.
For sure.
It's a topic. It's a talker.
Yeah.
Also, guys, on a more serious note, this is a really cool, interesting story. Again, we're going to leave this footage right here, this live chopper video of this chase up, just for your own interest. But today, and it's a possible story for our Nightside reporters. We're not quite sure if they're going to get more on this, but I'm really intrigued by it. There's a local student at George Washington University here in DC who is developing a new tool to combat sexual assault. And it's really, really interesting. She is a junior, like I said, and she was drugged and assaulted in Spain when she was studying abroad. It was the first time she became aware of that issue of how easy it can be, right, for someone to throw something in your drink.
Absolutely.
Or to somehow get you in a state where you can be kidnapped or taken or compromised in some way.
Right.
And she created a new thing. It's a napkin called No Nap, and it's a napkin that knows, and it's essentially a napkin that can tell if there's a drug in your drink.
How?
It's really interesting. There's something behind it. We're hoping to get more from this. I know one of our reporters is possibly hoping to get her and ask her about it. But isn't this fascinating?
I think that's awesome.
We'll see how far, how much more we can get on this. But essentially, it looks and acts like a regular napkin, and except that on each corner, it changes color to indicate if there is a drug dropped in your drink.
Okay.
And
I love that.
Just really, really interesting when it comes to us talking about A, sexual assault with this Nassar trial.
Yes.
B, the Me Too movement and the women's movement that has been, in a good way, pervading our society now as we talk about it. These date rape drugs and everything that is very prime sort of in today's society. So it's a great awareness for this issue. I really hope to find out more. And it's a local student that's doing this.
I think that's awesome. I think that is great. It reminds me of when they had nail polish that came out. You dipped your finger in and it would tell you if there was a drug in there. It's something with the science, with the nail polish. Don't really remember the details behind that. I think that's really like getting into the product. But you dipped your finger
So I do remember
and it would change color.
It also is reminiscent, or rather, actually, back to her company, No Nap. They're working with manufacturers, and they are hoping to get a Kickstarter campaign plan for this spring, and they're hoping to get a napkin available for sale at the end of the year.
That's great.
You wonder, that would be amazing if restaurants were able to, obviously financially, step on board, get this. In personal experience, I can resonate with this girl while studying abroad. I, hopefully less of a serious way, so not to diminish her at all, because I think mine was less serious, but I was traveling on a personal note on a train from Munich to Venice, Italy. There was some sort of perpetrator who came into our sleeper cabin and sprayed something, so we were drugged and he notably stole my purse. I'll never forget the story, obviously.
Wow.
Luckily, my passport was on my body. It was strapped to me. I was definitely God's grace that I was able to get out of this safely, and I had to relay my story in Italian to Italian police. I'll never forget this. But bottom line is, it could have been much worse, but he did spray some sort of thing that was not going to knock us out.
Yes.
Somehow get us unconscious, that we wouldn't wake up in the moment and we wouldn't see our purse or anything being grabbed. So there's that scenario. There's also other scenarios that I've faced in my life that have dealt with possibly being the victim of a drug being dropped in a drink but never proven. So we all kind of go through this.
Did they catch him? Did they find out?
Ultimately, I want to say so many years ago, it was more than 10 years ago, they did find my purse, and they found it. They actually brought it back to me. My magazine, I had a magazine, a digital camera at the time, like way back.
They found the camera there.
The camera was taken.
Ow.
The jewelry was taken. The magazine was still there, and the purse, which was a long shot bag from Paris, was intact, ditched in an alley in Italy. I think they found it in Milan, where the train actually stopped at one point, and where I reported the crime. They found it there where I reported it. But ultimately, they took the expensive goods out of it. Luckily, my passport was on me. I don't remember if they said they ever apprehended the guy that did it. But the fact that they found my goods, that I was able to sort of feel a little bit. There was a little bit of conclusion in that.
At least you knew,
absolutely, that my stuff was okay. I know it was stolen. At least I have my thing back. It was hard, but I can resonate with this girl, and how cool is it that she's taking that experience and turning it into, let me create something.
Absolutely, I think that's awesome.
And even make a business for herself, but in an amazingly positive way to help with sexual assault.
I think that's great. I remember when I would go out with my girlfriends all the time, my mom would say, don't let anybody give you a drink. Look at the drink. If somebody buys one, look at it. Actually, never mind. Let me check myself. She would say, just grab it from the bartender.
Absolutely.
Just grab it from the bartender. So
I've had some recent, I've had scenarios we all kind of have seen. Again, never proven for me, but I've been in situations where people thought possibly something was dropped. I became violently ill or something after something. This was years ago. I've had a couple scenarios where it didn't turn me away from the fact that this is a real thing.
Absolutely.
That it happens, and that no one, is infallible to being victimized like this. So, I can resonate with that, and I think it's awesome that this girl is coming forward. So I really hope that we hear more about it. And that she's able to speak with one of our reporters. Maybe maybe it'll be in the coming days, but how cool is it, and how relevant is it to everything we've been covering
so relevant
today with Nassar, throughout the past week, with the Me Too movement, with people who are speaking out. Social change, greater awareness is important. Empowerment of individuals is important. A safer society, social change.
A safer society.
So
she's definitely tapping into all of that. More power to her. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm just reading some of your comments. Thanks for the compliments, Raisa.
Oh.
Raisa is 100% class and style.
Oh,
you're sweet.
So sweet. I'm
Very
screenshotting
sweet.
all of this.
I know, right? Me too.
Keeping it forever.
But totally true. You got to be careful. Good advice from your mom.
Yeah, no, seriously. Because I think about it too. I'm like, okay, when I have kids, if ever, whenever, same thing. And it applies to men too, and not just females. Because I feel like, for example, I'm taking myself into consideration in addition to my brother. I hear my mother tell my brother the same thing. When you go out, careful with the drinks. Because you never know. It doesn't just apply to females, I think. And that's what we got to look at sometimes. It applies to everybody. So,
I love that. Yeah, I love it. Really good commentary on that. And I really do, like I said, hope that No Nap, which is no as in KNO Nap, comes to fruition, that she gets her Kickstarter. And then hopefully, there's more on that. And how cool would that be for restaurants to adopt it?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Because you also, restaurant industry, background in it.
In the past in the bar industry, I love the food and drink world. And I still am kind of dabble in it here and there. And I see it, right? So when you see it from the other side. your vision really for everyone, and it is part of your job to look out for other people. And then as a woman, of course, having dealt with scenarios,
absolutely.
Just I feel like I'm sort of on all sides of this and like seeing it from all angles.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to see her get funding and go forward with that.
I think so too. We'll see,
really
right?
Cool. So it's a cool little story.
That's great.
From local. But we pretty much, did we chat about everything we wanted? The
I think
bus,
so.
What else are you working on? Any other articles?
As of right now, no, because our main concentration was on the
Nassar.
on what we just covered, exactly, the Nassar. So we'll get into it and probably do a little deep sea dive and see what else is happening.
Some stories.
Maybe seeing it from a different angle, trying to, just do a little investigative work here.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, this has been awesome. Talking a little social news, of course, related to still today's content. We still have that car chase kind of wrapping up. Looks like the suspect is there.
Oh, okay.
On his knees, or is he on a stretcher? Can't quite tell.
Can't tell either.
Handcuffed. Obviously, something went awry there, and he tried to outrun police, but no dice.
Yeah, they got him.
So, all right, we'll keep it there. We'll kind of keep you with this. Again, no sound on this. It's just sort of a chopper feed. We'll let you watch for a few more moments until we find some other stuff to go to.
Yeah.
From the DC Newsroom, guys, Molly and Raisa. We'll talk to you in a second.
Bye, guys.
All right, back in the studio, guys. Not a lot to show you today, but we do have this car chase, like you said. Chopper video is still over it. Look at that damage to that SUV. And Schulte, you're asking me to do the weather. You very much know that I'm not a meteorologist, but I will tell you this. It is really, really pretty out today. There's a shot of the Capitol Dome. It's almost disguised into that blue sky because it's so gorgeous. It's almost like a sunny haze over it. I think it's, I don't even know what the temperature is. 43, so it is on the colder side. And I'm not going to pretend that I know the science of what's coming next, but Mike was saying earlier, we're dropping back into winter temps next week, so we'll be on the lookout for that. But for now, guys, like I said, just enjoy tracking this chase that's going on in Phoenix, trying to find out a little more information for you, but police were pursuing a Jeep Cherokee earlier this morning. It ended rather in a head-on crash in Tempe, and it hit another vehicle. So we don't know the status of the suspect or if anyone was in the other vehicle that it hit, but we do know things have wrapped up there. So we're going to keep our eyes on that for you. And then if anything else comes up, we'll be back with some more live video for you. All right, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us today on the stream here in the digital newsroom at Fox 5 DC. First of all, welcome, and if you're new, thanks for hanging out, and we want to welcome you to our chat. So please do feel free to engage with us in the live chat so we can answer some of your questions and concerns with anything that we're covering. As you know, we were kind of just giving you this scene here in Phoenix. Car collided with another car, started out in Tempe, Arizona. This is the ultimate destruction. Looks pretty ugly there on that intersection in Phoenix. Not a lot of new information coming out of that. But I do want to bring you back to pretty much the reason we went up today, or started with today, which is the former Olympic doctor Larry Nassar, who learned his fate today, earlier, being sentenced to between 40 and 175 years in prison. The judge, Rosemary Aquilina, saying it was her honor to sentence him and that he signed his death warrant. Been reading up on some of the social media and some of the tweets that people have been putting out there in response to this, and they're really, really good. They're just kind of all over. After we heard statements from more than 150 victims, I think everyone was sort of relieved to sort of see what his fate was going to be. So in case you came on the stream for that, as I know that's our headline today, we are going to just replay those final moments where the judge sentenced him to the ultimate like I said, years in prison. Now, on top of everything else, the 54-year-old doctor faces other charges as well that really would already have put him away for life, but this really does seal the deal. So we're going to replay sort of that little piece of video from earlier this morning so you can see the judge's words and what she said to him this morning in Lansing. So that trial, that sentencing is over after 7 days, 7 long, emotional days in that courtroom. And like I said, if you're kind of popping in and out of the stream, you may have seen this. Maybe you are just joining us for the first time. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to our channel here, Fox 5 DC's YouTube channel, and also follow us on Facebook. Fox 5 DC is our name on every platform. That's Instagram and Snapchat as well, which we also work hard on every day to bring you some interesting latest content, social viral videos. Anything that's breaking, of course, comes first. So we're on there for you guys. So thanks for hanging out with us here on the YouTube stream. We're going to play out those final words in these less than 30 minutes here on the stream, and then we'll come back in and close it out for you. So here it is again. If you missed it, guys, Larry Nassar in court and the judge reading his sentence.
Federal judge went ballistic at sentencing since I pled guilty to the state cases and spent 10% on the federal case and 90% on the state cases and civil suits. She gave me 60 years instead of 5 to 20 years, in parentheses, 3 consecutive 20-year sentences. I pleaded guilty to possession of porn from 9/2004 to 12/2004. 4 months. The prosecutor even admitted that I never belonged to any porn sites, any chat rooms, was not on the dark web, and also they could not prove I viewed it. It was all deleted, of course. I shared my electronics, and I could not prove that. So for 4 months of porn possession from 2004, I was sentenced to 60 years. Not proper, appropriate, fair. Going down a few lines. What I did in the state cases was medical, not sexual. But because of the porn, I lost all support, thus another reason for the state guilty plea. Let me move down further. So I tried to avoid a trial to save the stress to this community, my family, the victims. Yet look what is happening. It is wrong. Let me move down further. I was a good doctor because my treatments worked, and those patients that are now speaking out were the same ones that praised and came back over and over and referred family and friends to see me. The media convinced them that everything I did was wrong and bad. They feel I broke their trust. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. It is just a complete nightmare. The stories that are being fabricated to sensationalize this, then the AG would only accept my plea if I said what I did was not medical and was for my own pleasure. They forced me to say that, or they were going to trial and not accepting the plea. I wanted to plead no contest, but the AG refused that. I was so manipulated by the AG and now Aquilina, and all I wanted was to minimize stress to everyone, like I wrote earlier. Going down a little bit further. In addition, with the federal case, my medical treatments with the Olympic/national team gymnastics were discussed as part of the plea. The FBI investigated them in 2015 and found nothing substantial because it was medical. Now they are seeking the media attention and financial reward. Would you like to withdraw your plea?
No, Your Honor.
Because you are guilty, aren't you? Are you guilty, sir?
I said my plea, exactly.
The new sign language has become treatment. These quotes, these air quotes, I will never see them again without thinking of you and your despicable acts. I don't care how they're used, I will always think of quotes and the word treatment. It was not treatment, what you did. It was not medical. There is no medical evidence that was ever brought. When this case first came to me, and I've told you this, and I apologize to the Olympians and athletes, but I have 5 children, 2 dogs. My parents live with me. I work 4 jobs. I don't have much time for television. I don't watch sports. Although last year I was a soccer coach, much to the laughter of my family. I didn't know anything about you, or your name, or anything that was going on. And so when I kept saying, we're going to trial, here's the date, and everyone wanted more time, I said, no, here's the cutoff. And then the cases were merged and we delayed it. And I still thought, well, maybe there's a defense of medical treatment. And why did I think that? Because it's my job to be fair and impartial, but also because my 2 brothers and my father are very well known and respected doctors. Real doctors with real treatments and research, dedicated to healing. I haven't considered that in this case, but I have heard from your survivors now that they trust doctors like I trust the doctors in my family and the doctors I go to. But I still thought, well, there's a defense of medical treatment, and there are changes in the medical community every day for the betterment. So up until the time you pled, I believed that maybe there was a defense here, despite the felony information. I was ready for trial. Your counsel was ready for trial. The Attorney General's office was ready for trial. You, sir, decided to plead because there was no medical treatment. You did this for your pleasure and your control. This letter, which comes 2 months after your plea, tells me that you have not yet owned what you did, that you still think that somehow you are right, that you are a doctor, that you're entitled, that you don't have to listen, and that you did treatment. I wouldn't send my dogs to you, sir. There's no treatment here. You finally told the truth. Inaction is an action. Silence is indifference. Justice requires action and a voice, and that is what has happened here in this court. 168 buckets of water were placed on your so-called match that got out of control. I also, like law enforcement, or like the Attorney General, want to thank law enforcement for their investigation, but I also want to be the voice on behalf of the survivors who asks law enforcement to continue their fine work and to also include the federal government. There has to be a massive investigation as to why there was inaction, why there was silence. Justice requires more than what I can do on this bench. I want to also applaud all of the counsel in the Attorney General's office. I want to also applaud defense counsel. You all have done fine work. You've made me proud of our legal system. We all work together for the betterment of our community, and that is law enforcement, prosecutors, defense counsel, investigators. There are countless people. It's the only way our system works. We need this balance. So all of you, when I look at myself as Lady Justice, my arms are like this. They are balanced. Prosecution, defense are balanced. It only starts to tip after there's a plea and after I take into consideration everything that's happened. So I want everyone to understand I've also done my homework. I always do. People versus Wakalowski. I'm sure I slaughtered the name. I apologize, but it is spelled Waclawski. 286 Mich, 634. It's a 2009 case. And in it, and I want you to clearly understand, it says, plainly, the law does not limit victims' impact statements to direct victims. It doesn't say, and I have found nowhere that limits me from having you hear all of your victims. As I said before, when counsel came to me and said, we're not going to go to trial, despite our court having already sent out 200 of the 800 juror requests. And they told me their plea, and would I consider it in lieu of trial? There was the agreement between us because I always, and they know it, they are familiar with me, let people speak. And I wanted all victims, and we had a discussion about which victims. And of course there was an objection to one of them. I let it come in anyway. That was part of the plea that you entered into to allow the victim impact statements. Because after that discussion, I know your lawyers, as good as they are, sat down with you and said, the judge is going to allow this. And when it comes down to it, I know it also because this was signed by the Attorney General, by defendant, and by defendant's counsel on November 22nd, 2017. Aside from the letter that you wrote a couple of months after your plea, which tells me you still don't get it, there's something I don't understand and I want to make clear. Sir, you knew you had a problem. That is clear to me. You knew you had a problem from a very young age, even before you were a doctor. You could have taken yourself away from temptation, and you did not. But worse yet, there isn't a survivor who hasn't come in here and said how world-renowned you were. I trust what they say. You could have gone anywhere in the world to be treated. You could have gone to any resort, any doctor, place where you could get treatment. In Europe, they have all sorts of hidden places for things like this. No one had to know, and you could have found some treatment, some help, taken some medicine. You would have done that if you had cancer. I know you would have. You're about self-preservation. But you decided to not address what's inside you that causes this control urge, that causes you to be a sexual predator. So your urges escalated, and based on the numbers that we all know go unreported, I can't even guess how many vulnerable children and families you actually assaulted. Your decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable. I don't have to add words because your survivors have said all of that, and I don't want to repeat it. You can't give them back their innocence, their youth. You can't give a father back his life, or one of your victims her life when she took it. You can't return the daughter to the mother, the father to the daughter. You played on everyone's vulnerability. I'm not vulnerable. Not to you, not to other criminals at that podium. I swore to uphold the Constitution and the law, and I am well trained. I know exactly what to do. And at this time, I'm going to do it. And I want you to know, as much as it was my honor and privilege to hear the sister survivors, it is my honor and privilege to sentence you. Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and Anywhere you walk, destruction will occur to those most vulnerable. Now, I am honoring the agreement. I'm also honoring what's been requested of me. And I want you to know I'm not good at math. I have a cheat sheet. I'm only a lawyer. I know that you have a lot of education in physics and math, but I have a cheat sheet. It is my privilege on counts 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 18, and 24. To sentence you to 40 years. And when I look at my cheat sheet, 40 years, just so you know and you can count it off your calendar, is 480 months. The tail end, because I need to send a message to the parole board in the event. Somehow God is gracious, and I know He is. And you survived the 60 years in federal court first, and then you started my 40 years? You've gone off the page here as to what I'm doing. My page only goes to 100 years. Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant. I need everyone to be quiet. I still have contempt powers. I told you I'm not nice. I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger. You remain in danger. I am a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I have many defendants come back here and show me the great things they've done in their lives after probation, after parole. I don't find that's possible with you. So you will receive jail credit on counts 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, and 18 of 369 days. On count 24, you will have 370 days jail credit. If you are ever out, which is doubtful, you would be required to register with the Michigan Sex Offenders Registration Act, complying with all of the requirements of that act, in addition to global position monitoring system. You would wear a GPS. You will pay restitution in the amount to be determined based on whatever amounts are submitted, and your attorneys can ask me for a restitution hearing so that I can determine what a reasonable amount is for the victims. I am leaving restitution open as long as those victims have issues that can be medically documented. You will comply with DNA testing and pay a $60 fee for that. I suspect that was already done, but you owe $60 back to the county for that, or law enforcement, whoever. We'll put it in the right pocket. You must submit to HIV testing and complete counseling associated with HIV and AIDS. You must waive confidentiality and allow test results and medical information obtained from this test to be released to the court. You will pay $476 in state costs. You will pay a crime victims assessment in the amount of $130. Does counsel wish to address court costs and fines? I don't know his financial state.
Judge, he doesn't have any money to pay in court costs and fines. If the court wants to impose it, the court can impose it.
I'm not imposing any court costs and fines, and here's the reason. I don't know what he has or what he'll get in the future. The victims deserve the money. The county will survive one way or another. I'm also going to make recommendations to the Michigan Department of Corrections for mental health treatment. I understand he has some medical conditions and he should be allowed to take medicine for that. He should have individual and group counseling, treatment for sexual predators, whatever they allow. I'm also going to send a message. I'm not sure, but I believe I read an article, sir, that you were treating people in prison that don't have a license, don't commit any more crimes. I know you don't have any more lives to give, but you can't be treating people. You're not a doctor. So I'm not sure how that's happening. But I wanted to send that message. You have 21 days to appeal, 10 days to request court-appointed counsel. Do you acknowledge receipt of your appellate rights?
Your Honor, I've got the notice of right to appeal, and I'm providing it to my client now.
Do you acknowledge it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Well, let me just say to the media, again, I'm just doing my job. I know you all want to talk to me. My secretary has informed me that I have...
You guys, that was earlier at the Larry Nassar sentencing. I want to switch it over right now because we're getting a live feed in from police in Marshall County in Kentucky, updating on that school shooting from yesterday that left 2 people dead, 2 students dead, and 18 or so injured. Let's get that update right now.
Evidence indicating that the crime has been committed and that this defendant committed the crime. The second phase of that hearing is what's called a detention hearing, and that's analogous to what would be a bail hearing for an adult charge. Following the conclusion of that hearing, we will be filing paperwork to classify this defendant as what's called a youthful offender, and that is the process to charge him as an adult. So please don't get caught up in the term youthful offender. We have been in consultation with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, who's represented today by Jacob Ford, and that is the plan to ask the court to certify him as an adult. At that point, the grand jury in Marshall County is scheduled to meet on February the 13th. There are no plans to schedule a special grand jury at this point, so we anticipate that the case will be ready to be presented at that time. All the investigations are still ongoing, but we're making very good progress. The last thing I want to talk about is address the charges. Yesterday, the commissioner told everyone that there would be 2 counts of murder and 12 counts of attempted murder. The 2 counts of murder have been charged. The 12 counts of attempted murder right now will be assault first. Now, I want to emphasize that assault first and attempted murder carry the same penalty. The reason for that is that it's based on the information that we have right now. Attempted murder is an offense which takes into account motive and specific intent. Assault first, the elements to that offense are serious physical injury by means of a dangerous instrument. So as of right now, we believe that the better case is an assault first charge as opposed to attempted murder. And again, I want to emphasize the penalties for assault first and attempted murder are the same. Okay? That is also subject to change. The investigation is ongoing, evidence still being collected and processed. The grand jury in this case, which I said would be, unless something changes, February the 13th. The grand jury will have the final say-so on this case as to what charges are to be brought. So once that happens, it will be transferred to Circuit Court, Marshall Circuit Court, and at that point, it becomes a public case. Until that point, everything remains confidential. All proceedings are closed. Only essential court personnel, victim parents, a defendant, and his parents will be the only ones allowed in the courtroom. And that's really all I have to say at this point regarding the process and procedure and the stage of the investigation. At this point, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Trent Lovett.
My name is Trent Lovett, L-O-V-E-T-T, Superintendent of Marshall County Schools. First and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with our victims. Second, I would like to thank our staff, our administration, our students. They were phenomenal in the way they handled the situation yesterday. Several acts of heroism. I'm very proud of them. Our first responders, many of them that are up here with us, were on the scene quickly, and they handled the situation tremendously. With that being said, I would like to give our plans. We've had some recommendations about when to start school back, and I know there's been some questions about that from across the nation. We've been listening to some advice, and they think we need to get back to normalcy as soon as possible. So beginning tomorrow, we will have our elementary schools and middle schools will be in session at regular time. Parents will be allowed to attend school with their child if the need be. Buses will run at normal time. However, the high school will not be in session tomorrow. We will give further information about when the high school will be in session as soon as we can determine that. But that's the information that we have. We appreciate you being here. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with our victims.
Superintendent, what information can you give us about whether or not...
So a sad update there out of Kentucky. You can't really imagine what that superintendent must be feeling right now after this incident from yesterday. Again, a student opened fire in the high school. 2 are dead. More details to come about those who are injured, but another sad story in school shootings across America, which kind of struck us hard yesterday. So there's the update, guys, on the charges and what they're going to be dealing with for school being in session and whatnot for the next few days. With that, we'll bring it back in to the newsroom. Just a live update there from Kentucky, and we want to thank you so much for hanging out on the stream today, guys. I know we replayed a little bit of the Nassar sentencing, but that is really the thing we were focusing on this morning. It opened up our show, so if you do want to jump back to that or see any portion of that sentencing being given to Dr. Larry Nassar from this morning in Lansing, you can do so after this stream stops. Just pull it all the way back to the beginning. We went right up right away after the weather at about 11:30 Eastern time with that sentencing live. So with that, guys, thanks so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another stream. Hope that you guys have a great Wednesday, 24th of January. We're rolling through this month. Hopefully we have some more great content and live news for you tomorrow. We'll be back as usual with some weather at 11, going into the live news at 11:30. And I'm Molly Navola here inside the newsroom here. We'll take care and see you tomorrow.